Was Andy Scott surprised that he ended up being the last surviving member of the classic lineup of Sweet? I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music. We mentioned Andy Scott on one of our live broadcasts, and what do you know? There was a connection watching us talk about the band and said, I think I can get you an interview with Andy. To which I replied, I would like that very much. I like the early stuff for Sweet, but when Desolation Boulevard came out, the North American version, which sort of was a best of, I was hooked, and then Give Us a Wink. I became a huge fan and started buying all their stuff. So it was an honor for me to talk to Andy Scott. None of my 20-year-old friends came up to me when we were all growing up, and I still know them all. None of us looked at each other when we were 20 and said, oh, I wonder which one of us will die first. That doesn't enter your brain. But here you are, last man standing of that. I mean, you got to look back, and there's been so many twists and turns in your career, and you've survived it all. Are you surprised?
I never quite envisaged, well, you never do you, when you first start to perform? But you don't envisage yourself as a 70-year-old, 71, and still having the fingers to get your hands around a guitar, So, yes, it is a little bit odd. And, of course, when I was 17, 18, and just really starting to make a name for myself, this is before I joined Sweet, I'm thinking to myself that somebody who's my father's age, who would have been, at that time, probably about 50, he's old. He felt, or 40 odd. He felt really old. My grandfather, who was 60 odd, he felt old. I thought to myself, nobody in my age group thought about reaching 30 because, my God, you're not cool, you're not hip or anything like that. But then it all kind of changed in the 60s, that late 60s, when the flower power and and you'd see these guys in America who were in their 30s, hippies, and just basically, and of course Woodstock just blew it all apart. And after that, you're then seeing bands come through with some older guys in there like Canned Heat, and all of a sudden, what used to be the domain of only jazz and blues and folk musicians. All of a sudden, pop is able to be older, and rock is able to be a little bit more mature. And then the Rolling Stones now, who'd have thought the Sweet would be having hits? We're number one in a couple of charts with our latest single over here. It's just ridiculous, man.
Being 61 in February, people go, oh, you planning your retirement? And I like what I'm doing, but I'm hearing you, but you still got that hunger.
We don't do it unless we enjoy it, because if you do it for another reason, it's never going to work properly. Anybody who thinks, oh, I'll just pick a guitar up and I'll earn loads of money, you'll be lucky. Yeah. You've got to get in there and really, really enjoy it and watch your little special, niche here,
Did your parents get what you were doing when you were a kid?
My dad was an entertainer when he was a child. He used to go into talent competitions. He used to sing along with a doll strapped to his feet. So he would do this dance routine and sing. And, Harry Scott was, quite in demand. And then the war broke out, and anybody who was fairly fit went into either reserve or training. He wasn't quite old enough to go out there. And I'm glad of that, because he was a lovely man. He was, my hero. So from that point of view, when my brother and I, because my brother's a great musician as well, started to go off and do things, he would help. He would get in the car. He would, there were times when he knew I was going to have to get my bass gear and bass onto a bus to get down to a village so that I could do the gig. Well, he would say, come on, stick it in the back of the car. And then he'd say, right, you make sure you're ready at 11 o'clock because, I'm not going to hang about, I think he was a bit concerned schooling-wise, because I got to this point where I could have gone to university. It was just one of those things, I didn't do a lot of what they call swatting, but things stuck, in certain subjects like maths, English, geography, a couple of languages. So I could have probably done something. And he didn't realize that I'd already left school and I wasn't doing my exams. I'd actually turned professional because I was actually earning a decent bit of money with this soul band, especially after winning the talent show. So
how old would you have been then?
Just, 17.
Yeah.
And he was a bit unnerved. So he said, look, get yourself a job. And I thought, oh, right, okay. Working in a bank seemed to be the thing. You didn't work on a Saturday. Or so I thought. Until I started to work in this branch that was slightly outside of the town. And of course, it's the only focal point for miles. And on a Saturday, loads of farmers wanted to come in on a Saturday morning and bank all their money and get money out for the wages for their. So every Friday night, this small bank was loaded with money. And I remember thinking to myself, God, you read about the great train robbery. This is one branch that's, I said, I don't want to be here on a Friday. And of course, I would leave early on Fridays and they would say, you can't do this. And the van would be outside and I'd get in with the band and we go off. And I wouldn't show up on a Saturday morning. So it was destined to not last.
Yeah.
But I think he realized, after we'd won the talent competition, that there might just be something in this. I remember him putting me on a few years later when my brother and I moved to London. He put us on the train. This would have been the end of '69, and wished us well.
Did your parents see your success?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That must have been a proud moment for them. I mean, you were all over the place. You were a worldwide band. You were like everywhere. Especially by the time the '70s came, the U.S. embraced you. It was a phenomenon. It was big.
Yeah, I didn't have to do the thing that a lot of musicians do, where they buy their parents a house, because we already had a big. There were four kids in the family. We already had a big semi-detached house in North Wales, so it was just a matter of making sure that they were okay.
Yeah.
My dad and my mum was, in fact, in a pandemic like this, my mum would have been running a whole nurses station, in a hospital. So quite a busy house. We were not latchkey kids, but because my mum and dad did work hard, we all had keys, to get into the house and, make sure that, we were safe and all of that. So.
There'll be links to everything that is sweet in the description of this video. I want to thank Andy for talking to us. There's 13 parts to this series, and we'll release every part every 3-4 days. We don't wait a week anymore. We kind of get them out there. Anyway, as always, we appreciate your support. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. It means an awful lot to us. Share our videos on social media. If there's a sweet group out there, put this video on there. And comment on our videos because we read all the comments. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rocky Street Music. Take care of yourself.